We're now live.
We are?
Yeah.
That's what my screen says.
Ah, awesome. Yay. Okay, we're live. Hi, everybody. I don't, oh, there we go. Is it live? Yes, here we are. We're live. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Francis and David.
Hi, Millie.
How are you doing?
You know, as good as can be expected.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that way. So everybody out there, welcome to Mu-tini Hour. My name is Tung Crystal. I'm the artistic director at Theater Mu. I'm also an actor and a director. And I'm here with two of my theater heroes, and I totally mean that. They've been my heroes for a long time. Tony-winning playwright, Henry Hwang, and Obie-winning actor, Francis Jue. And they've worked on many plays together, including M. Butterfly, Yellowface, Kung Fu, and now Soft Power, which you may have seen at the Public back in the fall. And thanks so much for joining me, you two. David also we at Theater Mu have done several of David's works, including Yellowface, Flower Drum Song, and FOB, to name a few.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're so excited to have you on today. And so you're hanging in there with lockdown.
Yeah, it's very helpful to be here with drinks and we all kind of live on Zoom nowadays.
Yeah. Francis was just saying that you've been in Zoom meetings like since 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, I never knew that being unemployed could be so busy. I've been, every single day. It's like there are no weekends anymore. It's every day is a weekday, and I've been in, conference calls a lot, and trying to get stuff done.
Yeah, I think a lot of us thought that we'd be less busy now, but I feel like everybody is so much more busy. So I want to cheers to you two. You showed your drinks, and
cheers.
We've all been working really hard. So we're now, having our Friday cocktail at Mu-tini Hour. I'm not sure what mine is. I think it's vodka of some sort, but I'm not sure. My husband made me this drink. Thank you, Eric. I'm very lucky I have a personal bartender in the house. So where are you two? You're both in New York City, right?
I'm in Manhattan, yeah.
And I'm in Brooklyn.
And I'd love to talk about how things are going for you, over there and with New York in general. But let's talk a little bit first about Soft Power, as that's the last thing you worked on together, right? And that was, like I said, in New York in the fall. And David, can you tell us a little bit about the show? And I think Kevin's going to show us some photos.
Yeah, it's a tricky show to explain, but it's essentially a play that becomes a musical. So the first part is a comedy that takes place in 2016, and then the play jumps into the future and becomes a musical, a Chinese musical from China, which from their point of view relates the events that we saw in the play, and it becomes a musical looking back at 2016, and from China's point of view, how China steps in to lead the world when America collapses after the 2016 election. So it's kind of a reverse King and I, and it also works in a personal incident from my own life where I was attacked and stabbed in the neck a few years ago.
David, you make it sound so casual. The fact that you were stabbed in the neck.
Well, Francis has played me in the musical now, and so he gets stabbed in the neck. So he actually, yeah, that's true. It happens. Yes, it happens in the play, and then it happens in the musical. And so Francis has had to be sort of the sin eater or the trauma eater for me. And now Francis has assumed all of my trauma from having been stabbed.
So Thanks,
Francis.
No, thank you, David.
Yeah, don't say he never did anything for you. So how does that, so for those of you who don't know, David was stabbed in the neck by a random act of violence last year, was it?
No, it was 4 or 5 years ago now.
4 or 5 years ago. Okay. Oh, wow. That was, time flies.
Yeah.
And how does that incident sort of prompts the entire play, correct? The play within
Well,
the play?
the musical, yeah. So so we did a version of it initially at the Amundsen Theater in LA, because it was initially a commission between Central Theater Group and the Public Theater in New York. And that version, Francis also played me, but it emphasized the stabbing less. It was in there. And then the New York version, the stabbing really becomes the vehicle through which the David character, he's playing a DHH character, as in my play Yellowface, where the DHH character, because he gets stabbed, goes into this coma. And while he's in a coma, he sort of dreams the musical.
And I'd say that, and David will correct me if I'm wrong, he's described the play initially as sort of a meditation on not just the election, but in also appropriation of our stories, and how we are portrayed in mainstream media and in theater and in movies. And but increasingly, as the play was developed, it became all of that, the political and the artistic, aesthetic themes in the show were seen through the lens of David himself, who, because of this stabbing, had to re-examine the way that he also appropriated, that is, considered himself to be an American, and yet he can get attacked for being Asian in the middle of the street, you know? And so we find ourselves even now in a time where Asian Americans are feeling like they're being treated like, you know, foreigners and carriers of disease and stuff like that in much more visceral ways than even just a few months ago. So I think the play, as much as it is David's very, very personal story, is also a huge examination of Asian American identity and American identity.
Well, we created a show, you know, which particularly in its New York iteration centers around a hate crime. Mm-hmm. And now, only a few months later, we're all so much more conscious of the danger that we face as Asian Americans, the degree to which our status as perpetual foreigners has been exacerbated by the current crisis. And so, if anything, I feel like the show has more relevance at this moment, or more immediacy than even a few months ago.
So, David, I heard that you are looking at some edits in a new draft.
Thank you, Francis. Yeah, you can tell Francis is used to getting new pages from me in rehearsals and in previews. Not after we open, for the most part. I don't think I've ever changed anything after.
No.
Okay. So, but lots of new pages in previews, which is hard because, as you know, Lily, very well, and as probably most of the people who are watching know, the way it works in previews is I give them new pages in the morning, sometimes 30. How many new pages what was our maximum number of new pages?
The record was, you know, something like 35, 40 pages in a day that we had to integrate by that night.
Right. Wow. So they just performed it the previous night for an audience. They have to learn it in the morning. You know, Lee Silverman, our director, rehearses them into it, and then they perform it that evening. So it's very strenuous, and Francis is amazing at incorporating changes. Anyway, but yes, we are continuing to hope that the play has a future life. The show has a future life, and we have commercial producers that are being very diligent and keeping the faith and encouraging. And I'm so grateful to them for keeping us alive. And that means, of course, we are looking at things that we learned in New York and things that we want to continue improving.
And so we talked a little bit about how that incident that was probably tied to race when you were injured and hurt by somebody else, it makes the play, and I agree, so much more relevant now because of the anti-Asian racism that's going on amidst COVID. And I'm wondering, will that change? Is that figure into your psyche as you're looking at changes now?
It's a very good question. I mean, this is, Soft Power is always a show that has responded to current events. The fact that we initially premiered a musical in 2018 in Los Angeles and San Francisco, which dealt with the 2016 election, meant that we were working in pretty real time to capture the moment. Right. And I don't know at this moment, I'm not sure how this current COVID crisis and the impact on Asian Americans affects the actual plot of the story, as opposed to simply making the story more resonant for the moment. But, we rewrite a lot, so we'll see what happens.
Right, right. For those of you who don't know, so the Soft Power is a musical within a play, and the musical is done in a future when China is the superpower, and they are depicting America through a Chinese lens, in the same way that white Americans have depicted Asia as a sort of exotified place, like in shows like The King and I. So there's funny numbers like, what is the gun number where everyone has guns? Good guy with a gun,
which is, and when a lot of, not only China, but a lot of foreign countries think about America, one of the first things they think of is it's dangerous because there's guns all over the place. And we sort of represent that in the show through a fun song and dance number called Good Guy with a Gun.
It is really fun, and there's a Hillary Clinton character, and what I loved about it is how we've been, as Asians and Asian Americans, been exotified and perceived incorrectly in so many shows that are part of the American canon. You're taking that back and turning it on its head, and that's why it's like taking that power back from the story and the storytelling.
Yeah, Good Guy with a Gun is a really fun number, but I gotta say, tagging on to what you just said, Lily, it is the number in the show where more often than not, if there were people who were going to walk out of the show, that's when they were going to walk out. Was when they saw themselves being portrayed in ways that mimicked the way that we are portrayed often.
Wow, and so people would actually walk out in that number?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. And make it very well known that they were leaving. It wasn't like they were sneaking out. A lot of times they would leave and be talking about the show as they were leaving.
Wow, because they didn't agree with that particular portrayal of themselves or of gun rights or whatever.
Yeah.
Did that happen more in LA? Because LA was a bigger house.
Yeah, it happened much more in LA than, I don't actually remember it happening in San Francisco. No surprise, no surprise. But sometimes it did happen in New York too.
So we have a couple people joining. We have many people joining, and with some questions. And I wanted to encourage everybody out there who's with us, please feel free to leave comments and questions in the comment section. And our producer, Kevin Duong, who's also our marketing director, will feed us the questions, and we'll try to get as many answered as we can. Yeah, a lot of people have joined. Let's see, Sherry Rosenberg, Eli Urquiza, Dennis Yen, Kathy Shea, Roger Tang. And yeah, Aaron Quill joined. So if you all want to talk to us, please do. And I also want to give a shout out to some of the people who joined from, I directed Flower Drum Song, David's version, last year or 2 years ago. No, it was last year. And a lot of the cast has joined. Ruri's on the call. And Austin Koo's on the call that was in Soft Power with you. And so, or I'm not on the call, but on the live stream. So shout out to the Flower Drum Song cast and crew. And so one question that came up from Grace Wing Yuan Toy And I don't know if you've read this op-ed, but did you read Andrew Yang's recent op-ed?
Mm-mm.
Oh, David, you did?
Yeah.
So she would love to hear your thoughts on it, and maybe, because I didn't read it either, maybe you can talk a little bit about that. And she says maybe a soft power part 2 with Trump and Yang, question mark.
So yeah, for those of you who did not read Andrew Yang's op-ed, I think it was yesterday, days are so long nowadays, I think it was yesterday in the Washington Post. And essentially, you know, Yang was arguing that Asian Americans should, you know, arguing against the racism that Asian Americans are feeling right now. He sort of contextualized it in a way to suggest that we should be more, this is our moment to be more American, and to, you know, like there's all these things we can do to be more American. We can wear red, white, and blue, and we can, you know, step up and do all these things. And so I appreciate that Andrew Yang spoke out against anti-Asian racism. I do personally feel that he contextualized it in a way to say that, oh, it's our responsibility to, as Asian Americans, to prove that we're Americans,
Exactly.
as opposed to putting the burden on non-Asians to like not be racist.
Right, right. Yeah, I didn't read the op-ed article, so I can't comment on it. But yes, I feel like we're often forced to prove that we're American, even though the fact that we were born in America or raised in America, naturalized, that we identify American, that's somehow not enough, which makes me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, it falls for my case into too much into the model minority trope, like we need to be better model minorities and then people won't be racist against us. And I think clearly the answer, for me anyway, is to be anti-racism. And by the way, not only against Asian Americans, but against racism wherever it occurs. And, you know, there's a lot of anti-Blackness in our own communities, for instance. I think we need to deal with that.
Yeah.
I think it comes in cycles. I mean, I remember growing up in the 60s and 70s and, you know, being told exactly what Andrew Yang said by my parents, by our community, that the whole point was to assimilate, and not to assimilate as in come together and be who we are together, but by our efforts to go towards what was considered mainstream America, both aesthetically and otherwise. And then, you know, things started changing, and it was all about, well, how do we explore our own identities, including people who have accents, including people who are immigrants, including people who are not middle class. And that's sort of where my bread and butter has been the last 20 years, is playing those kinds of characters. And at the same time, going to classes to talk to students, young Asian American theater students, who are now, again, saying, I don't want to play people with accents. I don't want to play a servant. I don't want to play a delivery guy. And I'm like, well, those are real people too. And our job is to make them be human, appear human to other people too. But, you know, you're in charge of your career. You can go wherever you want. But I having been around a little while, I kind of think that this kind of idea that Yang wrote about, as you describe it, David, just keeps coming in cycles.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that advice to young actors. Is I have a acting coach, Richard Side, who always says, you know, the way through the, you know, Richard Francis, the way through the a stereotype, the way to deal with the stereotype is sometimes to move through it and not move against it, but move through it to make it as real and as human as possible. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, Francis.
Truly, that, you know, any one of us in this business gets to choose whether they are a Hamlet or a Juliet or, you know, Tom Hanks or whoever they get to choose their career. If that's who you think you are, then do everything you can to go in that direction. And, you know, I think that we have to be authors of our own lives and our own careers. On the other hand, you know, for me, having grown up when I did, I feel an obligation, no matter who I'm being offered, if there is at all an opportunity for me, the opportunity for me to make them into a human being, then that's something worth doing.
Yeah, great. And you have played so many of these rich and complicated characters in David's work.
And elsewhere.
Yes, and elsewhere, of course.
But I'm particularly grateful to David for continuing to hire me. Yes, that's true.
How was it to play David?
Oh my God.
Wait, I think we also I just want to contextualize that he also played my father in in the original Yellowface. Again, first at CTG, then at the Public.
You know, playing David was easy. The hard part was I didn't get a wig, so I couldn't look as good as he does.
Thank you. That's very kind.
I think maybe it was easier because I had played his father and had to learn to cope with what it meant, not just to play a real person, but a real person through the memory and through the artistic license of the author himself. And you know, we all have expectations of those that we're closest to, and so that was a much more frightening for me than playing David. You know, even having David in the room, you know, I knew that he was forgiving enough, and also strong enough to voice his opinions if he thought I was doing anything wrong.
You know, I actually can see where playing my father would have been harder. I'm just agreeing with you because, you know, my father had passed away during the period I was writing the show, and in many ways, Yellowface is kind of about my relationship with my father. And so I would have kind of a stronger sense of wanting to preserve something about, you know, in the portrayal of my father, as opposed to you saw in Yellowface, Hun Lee play me. And, you know, that character is in Yellowface particularly is kind of the clown of the play. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, anyway, I could see where it would be harder to play my dad.
The clown of the play, and yet cast with the hunkiest Asian American you could find.
I think I cast a pretty hunky Asian to play me in Yellowface in Soft Power also.
Word. So I'd like to go back to some of the questions, and more people are joining. If you're joining us now, we're in conversation with Francis Jue and David Henry Hwang, and there should be a sign-in link in the comment section. You obviously don't need to sign in to watch, but because we like to know who we're making an impact with, including, you know, with our work, you often get a survey when you're in the theater. And so our grantors and our funders often like to know who we're impacting. So if you could go into that sign-in form and sign in, then we can know more about you and share that with our funders and our supporters. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to list them. A few more people joined. Greg Watanabe says hello to both of you.
Hi, Greg.
And Francesca Dowis, she says, I'm a proud alum of the Stanford Asian American Theater Project founded by DHH.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And Phil Wong has joined, some more actors. And my mom joined. She actually figured it out. She sent me an email and she was like, I don't understand what it is. And I said, well, I'm going to be on a show. Just, you know, log into this link. And I didn't think she would actually figure it out, but
yay, congratulations.
Thanks, Mom. She's 89. She's still going.
So on this Mu-tini thing, that you've been doing this for a few weeks now, when people are actually drinking alcohol, does everybody get redder?
You know, that's so interesting. Let me think back. We had a big group the first week. It was the whole cast and company and writers of Interstate, the musical. And so they were really small in the boxes, so I don't know if we noticed the redness. But I should ask them. If anyone's watching out there, I think Kit Yen is watching, who is the writer of Interstate. He may know if he or others got red. I didn't notice. And then last week was Leah Nanako Winkler and Megan Kreidler and Eric Sharp. And I didn't notice it, but maybe I should go back and look at that. You can still watch our old videos on our Facebook page. So maybe I should go back and look. Megan and yeah, I didn't notice it with them, but that's a good question, David. Like, do you think I'm getting red, or are you getting red? Do you have that gene?
I do. I totally do. So I think I'm probably getting red. And I don't, yeah. Okay.
And your hair is marvelous. So I have to say, David and Francis had a conversation about their hair before we got on air.
Yeah. So, you know, it's nobody can get their hair cut anymore. So like, but Francis, you look great.
I have a clipper. I got it on Amazon, and I stand in the shower and I just do it till it doesn't make noise anymore. It's really easy for me.
Yeah, but, and I'm still not horrible, but in about 2 weeks, it's going to be pretty scary.
Are you going to let Catherine do it, or?
She's offered. We'll see.
I hear some distrust in that.
I've just never been, there's like one guy who's been cutting my hair for the last 25 years. So
oh, wow.
I'm just like, yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
There's a play in that.
Yeah, people are very, very loyal to their hair cutters. Linda Chin Workman says, you two are the hunkiest.
Oh, thank you.
And Jeffrey Lowe had a comment. Jeffrey was your director, Francis, right, on Language Archive at Theater?
Yeah, fantastic director, beautiful production. I loved that show.
It was a beautiful production.
While Francis answering this question, I'm going to refresh my drink.
Okay. First things first, David, he knows what's important. And he said, I remember Francis speaking on playing characters with accents beautifully during a poster discussion. Did you have a comment about that, about characters with accents, playing characters with accents?
Well, you know, what's interesting is I've done a number of plays recently, not Soft Power, but other plays, like with Language Archive, like with King of the Yees by Lauren Yee, where audience members, particularly Asian American audience members, would have questions about why we were using accents. And what's really interesting is how even Asian American audience members made assumptions about these characters based on the way that we sounded, the way that we spoke. And sometimes they even were asking us these questions in post-show discussions with their own accents, but they couldn't actually hear that they themselves had accents. You know, the first time that I ever had to do an accent in a play, a Chinese accent in a play, I told my mom, you know, when I think about a Cantonese accent, all I got to do is think of, you know, the way that you would say this line, and it comes out just, you know, perfect. And she was like, accent? What are you talking about? I don't have an accent. And it's like, well, we don't hear ourselves that way. And so sometimes I think people, you know, even Asian Americans make assumptions. But that's what's interesting about these particular plays, like Language Archive, like King of the Yees. It starts off daring you to come to these very quick conclusions about these characters based on the way that they look, based on the way that they sound. And through the course of the play, you start to learn that some of those assumptions you made weren't necessarily right. And I think it's a really sophisticated and clever way of getting people to see people who look like us as fully fledged people.
Yeah. I mean, David knows that I was in the Laureate tour as an actor of Chinglish, and that show especially, like, we have so many assumptions about the characters who are Chinese, and and everything gets turned so that it's not what you think it is. Mm-hmm. And I loved that the female characters especially were so complex, and Xian is so complex in that show.
Thank you. And you played her beautifully. You know, it can work both ways too, because like my mom, who passed away last year, I guess she had an accent and I could never hear it.
And so, yeah, I mean, my mom has a really strong accent, but I was talking to her on FaceTime the other day, and I myself was like, do I notice the accent? I mean, I notice it, but it's become so much part of me that I don't know if I notice it in the true sense that, you know, someone who doesn't know her might notice it. But I have had to play my mom, sort of like a mom-like person, in one of Jay Kuo's musicals, and I sort of channeled her for this part of as like, she's not Chinese. My family's Chinese, but she's a Korean immigrant, and I always said that I was channeling my mother. My mother came to see it, and then after the show, the show said, "You keep saying it. You play me. I'm not like that at all." And my sister and I both looked at each other and said, "Yes, you are." Yeah. So
that works for playwrights outside the world of accents too. I know a lot of playwrights who, you know, wrote a character based on their mother or something, and their mother was like, "A really good play, but that woman was horrible."
David, is there always somebody who sort of represents you or your perspective, your point of view in each of your plays?
No, well, certainly the naming a character after myself is a new thing, you know, over the past 10, 12 years. In general, before that, I wrote a couple autobiographical plays like Family Devotions and Rich Relations, where there was, you know, a more typical character that was a stand-in for me. But, you know, like in Butterfly or in Chinglish or Kung Fu, really, there's not a character that I think, oh, that's me. I you know, sort of distribute myself among the different characters in the show, and they kind of speak for different parts of me.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've done it a couple times right now, right, David? Putting yourself in the play.
Yeah.
And is it become sort of something that you want to do more of, or it was just random that it happened twice?
You know, particularly after Yellowface, I thought, oh, I got away with that, and I'm not going to do it again. And then, you know, but there is increasingly kind of a trope of people who are playwrights who are putting their characters into their own plays. And I mean, I didn't start it. I feel like I was inspired by Doug Wright in I Am My Own Wife, who has a Doug character. And then since Yellowface, I think Brandon Jacob Jenkins has done it. Although I don't know if he named the character. Qui Gen has done it. Lauren has done it. Lauren Yi. But I still wasn't planning on it, except when we got to Soft Power. I think because of the stabbing, which although it's morphed in the different versions to have a different significance, but the stabbing was always in the show in one form or another once there was a draft. And I think once that happened, it just became silly not to name the character after myself. I mean, I'm going to have like an Asian American playwright who gets stabbed in the neck and call him, you know, Martin Yi. I mean, it right. doesn't make any sense.
Right. Speaking of names, a few more people joined us. Lauren Gunderson, the playwright, has come on, so she said awesome, and Sunshine Lampatak Smith, who is part of my old theater company, Francis Lotus in San Francisco. She says, we were talking about being read, and she says, Zoom has a touch up my appearance setting. Might help.
Really?
Where? How do I do that?
She didn't. Sunshine, where is it? Tell us where it is.
Tell us.
Look at us. We're all like looking at our screens, looking for the toggle. And so what was I going to ask? So in light of, also another.
We got so distracted by the touch up my appearance.
We're also
go to the arrow next to video. And you'll see video settings. And you click on that, and it gives you all sorts of different.
Oh, you know what? It's already touched. Mine's already like by default clicked as touch up my appearance.
Me too, sadly.
Maybe I don't. Oh, I look
No,
great.
touch of my parents.
But it's not
That is
real.
amazing.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. So I also want to let everyone know there's some of you have been asking about donating, and we really appreciate the support. We don't have the donate pin right here, the button, but if you go into the comments, Kevin will put in a comment with the link to donate. So we really appreciate it if you enjoy the work and what we're doing and bringing you the wonderful Asian American theater artists. If you look at the comments, the donate button is in there. So thanks so much for asking about it.
Go Mu.
And thank you both for your support too. And so we're talking about soft power and how you put yourself in the play. And I'm wondering, you have some exciting things coming up for the show, because people are asking also what's next for soft power.
Oh, I mean, Francis would like to know specifics also, but I'm afraid I can't talk about specifics yet beyond the fact that we're working on the next version. We have very supportive commercial producers, and so we are hopeful that we will get to do the show again and continue bringing it to a lot more people. You know, obviously it's a very complicated time too, where it comes to finding a theater, what the whole situation is on Broadway, etc. But we're doing the artistic work, and we trust that the theater will come back. We're certain that the theater is going to come back, and Broadway is going to come back, and then something will get put together.
Yeah, and you have a your cast album is going to be announced soon, and you're going to have an online. People should look out for the online party, the launch party. Is that right?
Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you for teeing that up. Yes, we have the cast album is completed, and we are going to release it this month. Sometime next week, the date of the release will become available, and then we'll have like an online release party, and we hope a lot of you can join us and listen to the album.
Yay! And I think. So you're releasing it, and it's going to be online for obvious reasons. And I was going to ask you, so you both have known each other for Soft Power is the latest in a series of works we've worked together, but you have known each other for 30 years.
Yeah. Francis, I think certainly your first Broadway job was in the original production of M. Butterfly. Was that your first job out of school?
No. I actually got my first professional gig while I was still in school. I was a junior in college, and there was a friend of mine who I'd done shows with in school who was now playing audition piano for the revival of Pacific Overtures in New York in 1984. And they were having trouble finding someone to play the boy in the tree. And he called me at school and said, if you're feeling in good voice, take Conrail into what was then called Conrail into Grand Central. I'll pick you up and I'll take you to an audition. And so the next thing I know, I'm commuting between Yale, where I was an English major, and New York to do this showcase production of Pacific Overtures, which then got picked up by the Schuberts and McCann and Nugent and produced commercially off Broadway. So that was my first professional gig was in 1984. And Meg Simon, who was this amazing, brilliant casting director, who happens to be the casting director as well for M. Butterfly on Broadway, had seen me in that production. And that's when she called me up. I was a secretary at the AIDS Foundation after graduating from school. And she said, I'm coming through San Francisco. I want you to audition because BD is going to leave the show eventually, and Alec Mappa will become the new Butterfly, and we'll need a new understudy. So I said, well, okay, if you're coming to San Francisco, and I read for her. And months later, she called me again at work, and she said, we're having callbacks, and can you be in New York at the end of the week? And I was like, I'm a secretary in a little nonprofit AIDS organization. I can't pay for that. So she put me on hold, and she got the producer, your producer, Stuart Ostro, to pay for my flight, a house seat to the show the night before my callback, and a night at the Milford Plaza Hotel. So I never thought in a million years that I would get cast, but I went, and I thought this is going to be my one Broadway experience, to be on the stage of the Eugene O'Neill Theater reading, you know, for David Henry Hwang. How cool is that? So I did it, and I'll never forget how after I read, Stuart Ostro said, so you saw the show last night. Do you think that you can do all of the dancing, the Beijing opera and stuff like that? And I was about to say, no, actually, I have no idea whether I can do that, because honestly, after having looked at it, I was so scared that I couldn't do it. But before I could open my mouth, David was the one who said, hey, Stuart, look at all this dance stuff on his resume. Of course you can do it. So I just shut up and I didn't say a word, and I got cast.
You know, in general, when you ask an actor a question like that, they always say yes. It's like, oh, can you ride horses? Yeah, totally. And then they go and like learn how to ride a horse.
Francis is too honest. But he could do it, right? I hear you were beautiful in it. So.
Oh, I mean, not only was he beautiful, but at this point, you've done so much dance. And not only that, but Chinese opera and martial arts, including in my show Kung Fu about Bruce Lee, where you played Bruce Lee's dad. So like you figured that out.
David is intent on breaking my body.
So let's talk about that. Sorry, we'll get to some of the chat questions, but like Francis, particularly when we're working on Kung Fu, which is a very physical show, although a number of he's had to do physical things in a number of my shows. But you at that point had like broken your back and several other limbs?
Well, yeah, and by that point I had broken my knee on stage and had to have my meniscus repaired. And I'd been dropped during tech of another show from the catwalk onto the stage. So had broken my back and had to take 7 months out to heal. And so in the course of starting work on Kung Fu, after having recovered from both of those things, and I had always been really hyper flexible ever since even as a kid. And when I started studying dance, you know, flexibility came very easy to me. But by the time I got to Kung Fu, I started to discover pain in my hips. And it turns out that because of my hyperflexibility, I basically, at least in one and a half hips, my labrums were like gone. Like they were just shredded. And so all the stuff that we were doing in rehearsals for Kung Fu were making me into a cripple.
Oh no.
But I went to chiropractor like twice a week. I went to physical therapy twice a week. I got a steroid shot in my hip, and I finished that run. And the week after we closed, I had hip surgery. So I'm doing okay.
And yeah, fortunately, we didn't go straight to Broadway. So.
Oh gosh.
I would have loved to have seen the show.
So you're doing okay now, Francis?
Yes, I'm doing okay.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Because right before the shelter in place occurred, you were doing Cambodian rock band, Lauren Yee's show.
Yes,
which
and that
closed
that
a
show
little bit
also,
early.
Yeah, that show nearly also broke me too, but for other reasons. I mean, in addition to how emotional it was playing a mass murdering war criminal, I also, thank you, Kevin. That's really great. See, he should have been bowing lower. That's what I'm basically thinking in that picture. But in addition to how emotional it was, there was so much, because it's also a rock show with where everyone in the cast is a member of this rock band. There was a lot of smoke and haze in the show because it was designed as though it were a rock show. And for whatever reason, I was reacting really badly to all of that. It was giving me like asthmatic symptoms and stuff like that. So on the one hand, I was really sorry that we had to close early because of the pandemic. On the other hand, my lungs feel a lot better now.
Yeah, that show is wonderful, and shout out to Lauren. Theater Mu was also planning on doing it this season, and I was slated to direct it, but we had to postpone it, unfortunately, and we're hoping to do it in a future season. But it's a wonderful show, and Francis played Doik, and it's a very demanding role.
And such a revelation as a performance. I mean, I've seen you be tough and funny and all those things, but and heartfelt and dance around, and to do it all in one show was like, and with such intense subject matter. It's such a tribute to all of you, Lauren, of course, included, and Che, who directed the production.
Yeah, Che, we hope, we love to have them on our show. Linda Chen Workman says, Lauren Yi says she can't sign on tonight, but she says hi.
Oh.
And Francis was amazing in Kung Fu. So, and Lauren can watch this after it'll live on our archive, so anyone can watch it anytime. And for those of you who don't know, Cambodian Rock Band is part play, part musical. There's a live band, and it's about it's a father-daughter story in some ways, about a woman who is trying a Cambodian war criminal, and her father tries to stop her. And in the process, the father who survived the Cambodian genocide and the labor camps tells a story of how he survived in the 70s through those labor camps. And it's sprinkled with music from mostly dengue fever, but also other Cambodian songs. It's magical. So if you ever get a chance to see it, please do.
Amazing.
And so you were doing that, Francis, when that started, when the pandemic came here. And David, what were you up to, and what are you both working on now?
Oh, I was in the middle of a workshop. We're doing a new version of the musical that I wrote, which was on Broadway initially in 2000, ran from about 2000 to 2005, which was a pop Aida with songs by Elton John and Tim Rice. And we're doing a new version of it where I co-wrote the book for that. It was, I guess, my first Broadway musical. Yeah. In this case, I'm rewriting the whole book. And so we were in the middle of a workshop for that, and we were at these rehearsal spaces that get used a lot for big shows on 42nd Street. And it was supposed to be a 2-week workshop, and we shut down after 3 or 4 days, or went on hiatus.
I see. And what you're working on a bunch of projects though still, right, from your home?
Oh yeah. So I'm writing the live action feature musical adaptation of Hunchback of Notre Dame. So it's an adaptation of the 90s animated musical to be live action with for Disney, with songs by Alan Menken and Stephen Schwartz as in the original. And I was really excited to do it because I had this whole take that would really kind of push in on the immigrant and refugees angle. And Disney really went for it, and they've been great. And I think the development process has been going well. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm also writing a movie to star Gemma Chan from, a lot of you came to know her through Crazy Rich Asians. But Gemma was also, I've known Gemma for many years because she was in the National Theatre in London production of Yellowface. So those are 3 things I'm working on. And then we have an opera version of M. Butterfly with music by Hwang that should open at the Santa Fe Opera in August. And assuming that continues to happen. And then I'm also working on another opera with Philip Glass. This will be our 5th opera, which is a circus opera. So it will have actual circus performers. I think I just found out we have like a human cannonball in the show. And that's gonna open at the Opera House in Malmo, Sweden, before an international tour.
Wow. So much wonderful work. And for those of you who don't know, Francis is representative for equity You're
Yes,
doing.
I'm an elected representative at Equity, and also Equity Council elected me to be one of the trustees of the Equity League pension, health, and 401k funds.
So Francis is fighting the fight and on calls all day, supporting artists and actors and fighting the fight for us. So thank you for doing that work.
Oh, I have told you before, I'm nosy enough to want to be in the room where these things are getting decided, and advocating on behalf of membership is, I think, something that I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, well, we really appreciate it as actors ourselves. And so how are you staying sane during this time, or staying, having you're in New York, which is, we know that it's a challenging place to be right now. And our love to everyone in New York who is, especially the people on the front lines who are keeping us healthy and safe, or trying to. And so how are you two sort of, getting through healthy through this time, both not only physically, but emotionally, intellectually, spiritually?
I mean, I'm sort of, pathologically compartmentalized. So I'm just kind of going about my stuff. But, there are sort of wonderful things that are happening in New York in this moment as well, in terms of people stepping up for each other. I don't know if this is happening in Manhattan, but in Brooklyn, we do this thing, and it just happened tonight, and I was doing it a few minutes ago, or a couple hours ago, where we all applaud at 7 p.m.
for the I heard about that.
Yeah, for the healthcare workers for 5 minutes, and it's like an amazing thing to feel in a huge city like New York, which can often be so impersonal, that there are moments like this in a crisis where we're able to come together and feel a kind of bond that we hope exists, but maybe comes out more viscerally in moments of crisis.
Yeah, we're doing it here in Manhattan too, David, and my husband Randy and I make sure that we are by the window at 7 o'clock. And I thought it was just going to be one day, but it's happened every single night, and since it started last Friday night. And
oh wow,
yeah, a week ago now, and it's become. I mean, every single day there are more and more people hanging out their windows, banging pots and pans, ringing bells, screaming, clapping. It's really, really beautiful, and it's timed at 7 o'clock because the people who originally proposed the idea knew that healthcare workers often have their shifts change at around 7 o'clock. And so it might catch people on their way in or on their way home. That's one really beautiful way that I'm keeping sane, but also since Randy and I are both at home together, we started baking. And like a couple of weeks ago, we made
photos of your baking extravaganzas.
Oh, I'm gonna be so fat. I love it. Randy looked up a recipe. Oh my God, I can't believe, Kevin, you picked that up. Yeah. 2 weeks ago, we made Randy's grandma's raisin-filled butter cookies. A week ago, we made lemon squares. And we just made a raisin custard meringue pie. We made the crust and everything. So
I think Kevin has a photo of that too. It looks amazing. I think he's going to share.
Oh, there it is. I'm so proud of that, because we had never made a custard. We had never made meringue until that pie.
I'm thinking of making meringue pie. So you've inspired me now.
Oh, it's so good. It is so good.
It looks delicious.
That's my favorite pie.
No, really?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I order when I can in a restaurant.
A meringue, like a lemon meringue, or
yeah, well, like a lemon meringue. But
yeah. Me too. I also love meringue. It seems hard to make. Is it hard to make?
No, it's actually easy. We have a new mixer. We moved not too long ago, and we got a new mixer and with a whisk attachment, and so yeah, it was shockingly easy, knock on wood. I mean, this was the first time we did it. The next few times it'll probably suck, but this was fantastic.
Well, great. You've inspired me. I'm making a banana cream pie with my son next, but after that we'll try a meringue. I'd like to try a meringue. I've been baking a lot with my son during this lockdown, because I don't myself don't cook. My husband cooks, but I can bake. So.
You can make a banana cream pie and put the meringue on top.
I guess we could do that. Yes, I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna share a picture with you, Francis.
You do. Yes.
So I asked Francis and David to bring with them. We're gonna do a little show and tell of an object that, and this was inspired by Shannon, our managing director, because we meet every day, and we start with the show and tell of an object every day. So is there something you brought that's helping you through this time, this extraordinary time for all of us?
And I just went on the chat, and I kind of want to also answer Trinity's question, but in the meantime, so this is something that I've talked about that's never been photographed, but not that many people know that I've talked about it, so it's not gonna be that big a deal. But my pillow is an important aid in my writing. So when I'm writing, I mean, not if I'm at rehearsal, because it'd be like way embarrassing, but if I'm writing and I'm at my computer here, I just kind of, and I like,
wow.
Yeah, and that just kind of helps my neural pathways to.
That's amazing. I should try that.
I mean, I think it's only because I've done it as a kid. I mean, since I was a kid, it's just, I think it's
had
very
a blanket
individual.
like that too, David, where I would like rub my forehead against it. So maybe if I try that, yeah, that might help me write or do other work.
That's awesome. I have this angel that was made for me. I was working in Arizona, and there was a woman who made these angels for people that she cared about. And I'd never met her before, but I saw her making these angels, and I commented on how beautiful they were. And each one was different, depending on how she felt about the person. And she surprised me by making one for me, even though I was an out-of-towner. And
oh, it's lovely.
I was talking to Howard Sherman because he had asked me to do one of the 24-hour viral monologue plays. And he saw this in the background as I was talking to him, and he asked about it, and he incorporated it into the monologue. So if you
that's great.
If you go to 24-hour viral monologues, you'll see this featured in a really beautiful monologue by Howard.
Oh, we'll watch it. What is it? Do you know the website or the link to that?
Oh, let me see if I can find it.
It may be 24hourplays.com. I think I looked it up earlier today.
Yeah.
We'd love to see that. And I was going to bring my disinfectant wipes because apparently at Target you can get 1 pack of these every person, and we had like 4 left. So we were like, holding on to them for dear life and rationing, but you can get 1 pack of disinfectant wipes at Target in Minneapolis. So go get your pack. But I ended up deciding to bring my sunglasses because David and I had talked yesterday about the fear of going outside because of racism. And we both connected in the fact that we've gone outside with our sunglasses to maybe hide more that we're Asian so that people don't commit violent acts against us.
I hate to tell you, Lily, but that doesn't hide your yellow. I'm so sorry.
Oh, come on, it was David's idea.
It's kind of pathetic, and I'm a little bit ashamed of it, actually. Because, obviously we shouldn't be trying to hide who we are. And yet at the same time, this is a particularly volatile and violent time. Probably maybe the most in my life against in terms of anti-Asian racism. There was a period in the 80s, like the Vincent Chin period, that was not great. But this is a bad one.
And Lily, just to go back for a second, it is 24hourplays.com, 24hourplays.com.
Yeah, I put that in the comments.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's hard. Like I did the same thing that David did. I went out the other day for a walk and I put my sunglasses on. So I'm like, maybe people won't notice my yellow face, but I know what you mean, Francis. It's wishful thinking, but this is where we've come to. I want all of you to know that this is real. Like it's not, I posted about it on Facebook, and then a lot of my friends who aren't Asian are like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And I was like, where have you been? Like, this is happening. saying.
Right.
Well, I got yelled at a hospital, which I think Linda or somebody, Sherry, is referring to in the group chat. But yeah, I was just like going in. This was several weeks ago when you could still go to hospital. I was just going in for like a regular appointment, and somebody's like, "Have you been to China in the last 14 days?" And so, you know, and a lot of people have had a lot worse things happen to them, including Jeff Yang, who many of us know, and who wrote the liner notes for the New York production of Soft Power, but has many other amazing credits and publications, and is the son of Hudson, and is the father of Hudson Yang of Fresh Off the Boat. Oh, Lily, you're muted.
Sorry, a lot of us know Jeff Yang. Sorry about that. Yeah. So now I've lost my train of thought. So in going back to Soft Power, David, you wanted to answer a question on the.
Oh yeah, Trinity was just asking about casting, and she asked, speaking of casting, I was wondering about your choice of casting a non-Chinese or non-East Asian actor to play Sheshing, a Chinese person in Soft Power. His acting was amazing. I was just wondering about the casting choice. So Conrad Ricamura, who played Sheshing, is a mixed race Asian, and he's Filipino. And I guess I grew up in a period when we were really embracing the notion of pan-Asian casting. And I think that in shows like Chinglish, for instance, there are some very specific Chinese national, or at least Chinese American casting considerations. I feel like Soft Power, where the Chinese musical is very transparently filtered through the sensibility of an Asian American, i.e. me, we can look at a wide range of Asian American actors. And I think that in terms of being a mixed race Asian, it's a little bit like the Henry Golding controversy. I think that mixed race Asians are increasingly so much a part of our community. And I don't feel comfortable excluding them. And lots of times mixed race Asian actors don't look white enough to play white. And I think that it is my belief that it's not just my belief, I feel very confident that they are Asian Americans. And I want to acknowledge that when I'm looking at casting.
Thanks for saying that, David, because I think for me too, as an artistic director of an Asian American theater company, I get asked that question a lot as well. And one of my responses is that, you know, when people come in the door and they're half Asian or part Asian, it's not up to me to define what their identity is. If they identify as Asian, that is their right and their own decision and their own identity to define. Like, it's not up to me to dictate how somebody defines their identity. And in terms of, and like you said, like certain shows are very specific in casting, like Chinglish. And I would say, like, I try to get as many people from that ethnicity to be in the play that I can, because I think that's always best in terms of like the storytelling and understanding the storytelling. But I also think that as, you know, white actors, whether you're British or French or German or Austrian, you can play, like an Austrian person can play an English person can play a German person can play a French person. I feel like Asian American actors and Asian actors should also have the flexibility or the opportunity to play a variety of Asian ethnicities, because if white actors can do that, then I don't want to limit an Asian actor. Like, for example, I'm Chinese, to say I'm Chinese ethnically, to say I can only play a Chinese character, or if someone's Korean, that they can only play a Korean character.
Yeah, I would say, oh, well, you know, Meryl Streep was in Sophie's Choice.
Right, perfect example. And I feel like a lot of times when it's POC artists, we often have restrictions put on us, or, you know, the mainstream theater community tries to put these restrictions on us that it has to be this way, when Caucasian actors don't have those same restrictions.
Right, there are aesthetic restrictions, and then there are just business restrictions. And, you know, those business restrictions we can't help. And until those are answered, then I say, you know, we have to be as universally accepting of ourselves as Asian Americans or mixed race Asians as possible. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't be judgmental and judge ourselves. Even, you know, a Chinese American person for playing a Chinese person can be dicey. And we should be holding ourselves to those same high standards, no matter who is playing them. But, you know, God forbid, we should say that someone who, you know, wasn't Chinese couldn't play somebody who was Chinese.
Right. Well, thanks for that conversation. I know we're going over time and I want to be respectful of your time, Francis and David. There was one more question that I would love for you to answer, is if that's okay with you. I don't know what you have going on tonight.
I'm at home.
Yeah, we're both at home, we're all at home drinking. And it came a while ago from, let's see. Oh, Jeannie Chang. She asked they asked, what kind of new shows do you want to see from Asian American theater artists?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like we're seeing the shows that I want to see from Asian American theater artists. I think there's just an extraordinary range of work that's being done in terms of form, in terms of subject matter. And, you know, sadly, everything closed down, but there were like 5 shows, I think, by Asian American playwrights off Broadway this spring. And, you know, extremely varied in content. So I feel like in the last 5 to 10 years, there's been an incredible renaissance in Asian American playwriting, and it just keeps building momentum. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry I didn't get to see Endlings.
Yeah.
I had tickets already. You know, there's a bunch of things, but there's great experimental work pushing the envelope happening now, and you know, I'm sure Mu is doing a lot of it.
Yeah, I think that I'm giving credit where it's due, not just to David, who has been, you know, pioneering and beautifully articulate force where this is concerned, but the, you know, Asian APAC, the Asian American Political Action Committee, has taken a tack that I think has actually reaped results. You know, 5 or 6 years ago, they started by collecting data so that we weren't just sitting in a room talking about how it felt, where people could just deny to our faces, you know, the reality of our experience, but they just started actually collecting data on who was getting cast and what shows were being done and presenting them even to folks who we consider allies, who discovered when looking at the data that they weren't doing as well as they thought they were doing. And so I think that has started to reap real results. I think that that's also resulted in this new generation of writers who are seeing not just the limitations that are being imposed on them, but what's possible. So they're writing wild plays, as David said, that are defined form, and they're writing big plays with you know, enormous casts or enormous demands. I mean, like this play of Lauren Yee's Cambodian Rock Band had a cast of 6, but each of them had to play multiple instruments and had to be funny and dramatic, and the show had to be budgeted like a rock musical, in spite of the fact that it was a little play being done off Broadway. And I think that it says a lot that the theater community now is embracing these plays, even, you know, when they couldn't possibly have been able to afford it. I mean, look at Soft Power with you know, an orchestra of 23 people and a cast of 19 at the Public Theater, where, you know, even when we were selling out, was losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a week, because in a little theater like that with 200 seats, 300 seats, something like that, you can't possibly make back the money, but there was the commitment to doing it. and to telling these stories, basically. And I think that we've raised a lot of people's consciousnesses. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I agree with both of you. I think there are these really insightful, wonderful, skilled Asian American playwrights who are redefining and creating the new American canon. And we're all, you know, trying to do that work and pushing it forward. And including the, you know, the playwrights of our season, Lauren Yee, Ji-Hae Park, and Charla Ching. We did the work today. And I know that Ji-Hae was also acted in Endlings.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, the definition of not-for-profit theater is that it can't pay for itself with ticket sales alone. And by and large, most not-for-profit theaters, the ticket sales are only a small portion of what make up their budget for doing this work. And so I applaud Theater Mu. I encourage everyone to dig deep when they can, if they can, and to donate. I believe in Theater Mu so much.
Thank you so much, Francis.
Absolutely.
Thanks for raising that. And of course, if you all want to donate, if you like this programming we're doing right now or in the past or programming that's to come, there's a donate link on in the comment section, and it's a pinned comment. You can see it in the comment feed, in the comment thread there. So thank you so much, Francis, for giving us a shout out.
And Mu, you know, Rick Shiomi, who was the artistic director of Mu for so many years.
Rick, we love Rick.
And you know, Rick and I came up together, and we're of the same generation of playwrights. And I first met Rick when Philip Kahn-Gotanda, another wonderful Asian American playwright, and I were in a band together in our 20s. And Rick was a community organizer in Vancouver and invited us up to do a gig in Vancouver. And we all, you know, nobody had any money. So we all just kind of stayed in his apartment in Vancouver, and that's how we all met. And so Mu has been very close to my heart over the years. And so, yes, please support it, particularly if you're enjoying this programming.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, David. Yes, everyone, please support. There's a donate button again at the bottom of the comments. So wait, so who was in the band? It was. So
Philip wrote the music and basically performed it. And I was a jazz violinist for many years and played in a number of bands. And so I was sort of the side man. And we toured with two other musicians, Robert Kikuchi Ngoho and Sam Takemoto. Sammy was in the original Yokohama, USA, which this is really like, you know, Asian American history. Anyway, so, and then the four of us created a group we called Bamboo Brew when we played together. And Rick brought us up to Vancouver. And Rick plays mandolin, for those of you who don't know.
Oh, does he really? He does everything. So for those of you who don't know, Rick Shiomi is the founder of Theater Mu, and I think he may be listening right now. We love you, Rick. And he founded Theater Mu, and we're so grateful to him for all the work that he's done. And I did not know that he played mandolin. I will have to ask him to play mandolin for us.
David, are there recordings of you guys?
Yeah, actually. Hold on.
Oh my gosh, no, really?
So I will take this opportunity to plug this CD, which got released last year. And I feel like it's a CD of a live concert that Philip Gotanda and I did in San Francisco in 1979. So I feel like we totally bookended the CD era. When we first did the concert, there were no CDs. By the time this was released, nobody has a CD player anymore. But anyway, you can search for that.
Philip released that last year?
Yeah.
And what is it called?
It's Philip Kahn-Gotanda, featuring David Henry Hwang in concert, June 2nd, 1979, and you can get it. I'll figure it out and put it in the link. If I'm going to plug something, I should know where it is.
Just like Barbara Streisand, the album is self-titled. That's amazing.
I'm sure if we Googled Philip Congo Tanda with David Henry Hwang CD,
Okay, I'm gonna look it up now.
we could probably find it somewhere. While he does that, Francis, Stephen DeMena wanted the recipe for your pie, your raisin custard meringue pie.
Okay, I will post the recipe under the picture of the pie on my Facebook page.
Okay, cool. Stephen, did you hear that? He's gonna post.
So you don't have to read it out loud here on our.
maybe you can tag him so that he'll be sure to get it.
Okay, and that's the link where you can get the CD.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna put this in the
yokohamaka.com.
I wish Philip. Yeah, Philip. I haven't been in touch with Philip in a few months. Okay, that's the CD link. I'm gonna look at that up. That's incredible.
And thank you, Tree for having actually listened to the album. So.
Oh, Tree Vo did say, "I love the song All American Asian Punk from that album." So effing great. That's great that he's heard it. I must get it. That's amazing. I didn't know that Philip had released it. So I'd love to wrap up, but before we do, thanks so much for being here. And we do this game on Mu-tini Hour where we pick Proust questionnaire questions out of a jar. And for those of you who don't know, the Proust questionnaire, and Francis is scared, but don't be. It was very, very casual.
I'm scared. Why
oh no, David's scared too. Oh no, I don't want to scare my guests. Like, maybe we shouldn't do this anymore.
No, let's do it.
Sounds like fun.
So the Proust questionnaire is a questionnaire that Marcel Proust, he didn't create it, but it was a parlor game during his time. And he felt like it was a good way to get to know people by having them answer these questions. So there are about 30 questions, and we're just going to pick a couple out of this jar. And we're going to add during COVID at the end of each question. What is your motto during COVID?
Stay home, stay safe.
Wash my hands.
Very good mottos. Okay, let's see what else is in here. What do you consider your greatest achievement during COVID?
Oh my God.
I guess, besides my regular writing and stuff, I run the MFA playwriting program at Columbia, and I'm chair for a few more months of the American Theater Wing, which founded the Tony Awards and does a lot of other things. And I guess I feel like I've been doing my best to try to support the field and my students. And I'm sort of proud of that.
Sounds great.
That, mine is very similar to David's in these conference calls I'm having with equity and with the funds, talking about the health plan and the pension plan and the 401k plan. I'm usually pretty even-tempered, and I keep a lid on my feelings when trying to be professional. David knows this from rehearsals, where I'll sometimes, at the end of the day, apologize for having blown up that way, for having had that outburst. And he's like, what?
And you never do. Yeah, you never do. It's like, what happened? Anyway.
Yeah, no one can usually tell that I'm angry. But lately, partly because of this whole COVID and being stressed and being cooped up and being angry over everything that's going on, I have said, well, fuck it. Now is the time to speak up, speak out, and try to push people to treat this as the emergency that it is. And so I think that right now, the first thing that comes to my mind is how proud I am of losing it in some of these meetings. And actually, because I've had this rep of being such a peacenik, it gets people's attention when I speak up. So is something I'm proud of.
Awesome. Aaron Quill says, I like angry Francis.
A lot of people who came to see Cambodian rock band were like, I never knew you could be so evil. And you just don't know me.
He's got it in him, everybody. You heard it here. I think for me, I feel like I'm really proud of the work we're doing here now, that Theater Mu is not able to do, we're not able to be with you, which is it's caused so much grief for us. And I'm grateful that we can still connect with you at Mu-tini Hour. Every Monday night, we do a Mu Mondays program where artists, API artists primarily, and other artists gather and read plays by API playwrights. So that's been really helpful spiritually and artistically for artists. And then we're going to start our family programming. So I'm really proud of the achievements that Theater Mu has done in keeping the work going and supporting and employing our artists during this time when we can't do theater.
Brava.
So, thank you so much. And thank you for supporting that in this work. So we'll ask one more question. We'll do 3. What is your most treasured possession during COVID?
Randy, my husband, Randy.
Oh
my God.
Sweet.
I tell him almost every day, you're saving my life, because he is.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel very grateful to be with my family also. And in terms of a possession, I feel like we're sheltering in a very privileged position because we have a yard. And so we can go outside sometimes and still be, people run, which I think is great, but I don't run anyway. So that's very helpful.
Yeah, I think for me, it's not a possession because when we moved into short-term rental. So we're in a rental house, but there are 3 Viking ovens in my kitchen.
Wow.
Which is totally accident. Like we didn't plan it. We just happened to have, oh my gosh, Francis is like.
No excuse. Make pies.
I know. So we always joke in my family because I don't cook. Like I said, my husband Eric does all the cooking, but I can bake. And so we've been doing a lot of baking. And so I think the 3 Viking ovens in my home, even though I don't possess them because I don't possess this home, have been very helpful. And I used to joke when we first moved in that I never had, why does someone need 3 Viking ovens? Like I've never used all 3 at the same time, but during this pandemic, I have used 3 at the same time.
Amazing. You're so lucky.
I know. They've ruined us though, because any house we move to, because we're not going to live here much longer. I mean, after COVID, hopefully we'll find a long-term place. But because for those of you who don't know, I moved out here in August from San Francisco when I took on the role as artistic director. And so, looking at other homes, none of them have the same setup. So I think they've spoiled me. But coattailing on David's comment, like we're all so fortunate to have the opportunity and the privilege to live in comfort and in safety when so many people are at risk. So I just want to put it out there. And talking about that, because I want to end on a high note. So we are going to have more Mu-tini hours about the risks that Asian Americans are going through right now in being targets of racism during what I have to say it, our leader is saying is the Chinese virus. And so so next week we're going to have 3 guests on who started the Racism as a Virus hashtag and campaign. That's Diane Phelan and Ariel Estrada, who's the artistic director at Leviathan Lab, and one of our Twin Cities actors, who is Brian Kim. So they're going to talk about that campaign and what Asian Americans are going through right now in terms of feeling threatened in terms of racist activity, and in particular Asian American artists.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that we touched upon that a little bit because, as David talked about, his show Soft Power, you know, was somewhat inspired by your experience as a victim, and that show is very much now still very timely.
And Francis, you did a racism is a virus post, right?
Yeah, I did a picture of that. Someone earlier in the chat actually talked about microaggressions or being othered in rehearsals or in other work situations. And, you know, that's something I've dealt with a lot. And unless it gets truly like physically abusive, I have to say that in more often than not, I've tried my best to let my work speak for me, and to claim and to claim my space. If someone is implying that you don't belong there, I often think that it's much more effective simply to do your work and show them, you know, who you are. It is a much stronger statement than telling them to back up until the point where they physically just need to back up. And so, yeah, that's, you know, if I have an opportunity to post about racism as a virus or other things like this, I'm on the EEO committee at Equity as well. I'm happy to and proud to.
The EDO committee is equity, diversity, or equal opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And so before we close, I'd just like to remind everybody that if you'd like to donate, the link is on the comment section. Also, if you didn't catch the whole broadcast, it will live on our Theater Mu Facebook page, so you're welcome to catch it anytime. And our fearless producer and marketing director, Kevin Duong, has put up a feedback survey, an email sign up for the coming Mu-tini hours, and also if you want to sign up for next week's Mu-tini hour, which is the one with Ariel Estrada and Brian Kim and Diane Phelan, then you can sign up for that too. And he'll throw the links up in the comment section. So before we close, do either of you have anything that you wanted to add that I didn't touch upon? I know there's so much we talked about.
I just in closing, I'd like to say, in addition to, you know, your most valuable possession during COVID, throughout my life, I think I have felt really lucky. There are so many people in this industry who feel like they're in it by themselves. They're in it for themselves, that it's simply up to them to fight for themselves. And throughout my life, throughout my career, I have felt really lucky to have a community. And this last hour and a half has been a great example of that. So I'm really grateful. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here with both of you and everybody out in the community that is supporting the work and being part of the work. Great. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate you being here, and we're going to close up. And we went long, and I'm glad, I'm grateful for all of you for sticking with us and enjoying it. So again, the links are there if you need it. This will live live. This will live on our Facebook page. So feel free to access it whenever you like. And thanks again so much to Francis and David for being our guests tonight.
Our pleasure. So much fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.